Hey folks, welcome to another Flow Conversation. This week we're going to be talking about whether or not value streams are a problematic misnomer or if they're useful, where the term is helpful and where it breaks down. And primarily the focus for today is the idea of value flowing, whether or not it can flow, in what ways would it flow, and how should we think about value progressing through a value stream? So does anyone want to kick us off with controversial or strong opinions?
Well, I've voiced my opinion, which I think we were talking about earlier, is that, yeah, the work flows and it generates value. So this idea that, because the word value stream implies that you got a stream and streams flow, and so that means the value is going downstream, but it's a bit of a misnomer. The other piece you mentioned there as to whether it's still useful, I think it's incredibly useful. There's an awful lot of, well, value in it. So I think the value stream concept and the things that we can do with it are very valuable.
Yeah, for me, I think that it's really important. Like, the value in the term value stream is in the framing, right? It's in calling attention to the fact that we are talking ultimately about value. What we're doing is in service of value. We're not just doing work for work's sake, because we have, processes for that, and everyone hates processes because they deliver so little value all the time. But I think what's kind of interesting is that value stream mapping evolved out of material and information flow diagrams, right? And the concept of the value stream came out of this practice of motion study, which I think is actually more accurate, but way less satisfying branding, right? It doesn't talk about value. It doesn't talk about customers. And I think that the framing of the value stream is very positive, that idea of flow, the idea that we are ultimately trying to deliver value.
In a sense, it's almost more productive to think of a value stream as a stream that flows down into a pond or something. And that pond is the collection of all that work that you've done. And someone coming to your pond they get value from coming to your pond, because the pond value emerges from the fact that the pond is there. But Patrice, did you want to lay out your take on it?
Yeah, I think perhaps it's a misnomer to use this name, value stream map, and sometimes we have the problem to use it more as a process mapping, as you said, Steve, I think, and the name is important to focus on the research of value. And I think it's very important in the preparation phase of a value stream mapping exercise to be very clear with the leadership team on the value we will look for. It's important. So in the beginning of the exercise, and to be able to align all the participants on this research of value, because in a value stream map, you can identify tons, hundreds of improvement points. And so it's important to have this vision of where we want to go, and to select and prioritize the discussion on what is important and what is not. Regarding this value, we have defined in the first step.
Another interesting side view is from systems thinking or silo thinking. You almost guarantee an anti-systems perspective if you say that value flows, because you're attaching value then to work, and you're then holding it to an individual to accomplish that work as they go through. And so rather than saying the system produces your value at the end of the day, you're attaching it to all these little micro things that contribute, that have the potential to eventually create value. Yeah, so it's another side concern with it, maybe, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's another, not necessarily a weakness with the term. Well, it is. I think it's linked to the term, but it's also just the idea that we can simplify the flow of work or value or anything into this linear flow is kind of misleading, right? Because we know that everything is this complex network
Right.
system where this thing's affecting this thing, that's affecting that thing, and then all of this, at the end, which is not the end, like someone gets value out, right? But it's not that simple. So I think that there's a lot of power in that simplicity and even power in the simplification, but we have to be aware of the fact that this exists in a larger context, and it's going to be interpreted by people differently because it's not complete, right? It's just a model. Which, go ahead.
Useful, I was going to say useful abstraction. Sorry.
Yeah. Another thing that came to mind was the idea of, just the concept of a lexicon, right? Because all these words get interpreted by people differently, and we're really leaving it up to, very much like value, we're leaving it up to the audience, the person receiving the word, counting on the fact that they find it valuable or useful, or that they interpret it the same way. And so I was having a conversation earlier today, and I keep coming back to this idea of like creating your own lexicon, right, inside of your organization. So the value stream means something to you in your context, but it means something to everybody in your context, and it means the same thing, so that you can speak the same language. And I think that reconciliation process can be thought of as sort of like a co-creation, right, of a term, and you can reappropriate these terms. You can say, this is what value stream means to us, or we can say, we just talk about material information flow here, when we talk about work and information flow. And that's useful for us because we don't have the challenge of association with outside. And I ran into this, so many times with value stream mapping, where people go to Wikipedia and they're like, that looks crazy to me. And, I don't understand where I'm supposed to put the factory and the trucks and all that stuff. So in some ways, that's part of what flow engineering was, an effort towards like rebrand this under something that's new that we can define, and we don't have to be attaching to someone else's understanding of the term, and that challenge of translation, right?
Shared understanding problems.
Yeah, I like to talk about this in terms of, I usually present it as a Rosetta Stone, like this idea that you're translating between different languages, that different parts of the organization all talk different languages. So to help them understand, you need to create a common language, a common model, something that they can come to, and everybody can agree, well, this is what we understand this to be. And so that we've got that common understanding, and it becomes even more critical as the organization grows to have that in there, as you call it, Steve, a lexicon, the list of things and terms and ways that we describe things and how we talk to each other, and what does all of this mean? That's very powerful.
To take it back to the question of, so does value flow? What are some of the signals of having a paradigm that value flows? What are some other signals that people can keep an eye out for, that when they see this happening, oh, we must be looking at value the wrong way? Like some of the other topics we were talking about, rewarding individuals because that individual is, creating lots of value. If you're saying, if you have that organizational, what was the term? I don't know. If your organization is set up to do that, you're basically drawing a line in the sand and saying that value must flow because look at this person creating all this value. So what are some other signals like that we could help folks out with?
Yeah, that can be challenging. I mean, this assignment of value to individuals or one node in the network or one part of the value stream is challenging, because that's part of how organizations end up in these situations of having like 10x developers who end up like dragging down the rest of their team because they suck up all the resources and attention, and that's how they're so productive. They're just constantly interrupting everybody else. They're super high value individuals, perhaps, but they might be making the system less valuable, right? They might actually be inhibiting the flow of value without looking at the bigger picture.
I think we have the same issue with groups. When we say these activities are waste or are non-valuable activities, and it's a little bit touchy to present value stream mapping and classify activities with this category of waste and non-waste work. So perhaps the name and the term we use can be less aggressive for people. I don't know if you have the same experience, but I think it's touchy to present things like that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think it's another term that should be agreed upon with the team, right? We might not even want to talk about waste. We might just want to talk about value added, right? But that, that brings us back to the definition of value and how we think about value. And one of the things that I like that's come out of the Flow Collective recently is this idea of like expected value, right, versus like reconciled value or delivered value. But understanding that we expect to get something or we expect to deliver value, I think is really great, because it plays very well with our understandings of experimentation, right? And the idea that we don't know everything, but we're trying to figure things out, and we're making little bets wherever we can to try and understand more or deliver value wherever we can. And I see those kind of playing closely together, that idea of expected value and a hypothesis being part of just this mindset of experimentation that's very helpful.
Peter wants to say something.
Peter wants to say something. I agree with what we're talking about around. I think in terms of the overall point here, though, I think we've come to vehement agreement that that value stream is a misnomer in some senses, but still a valuable concept, and that work is what flows down a value stream, and that it's not really value that flows down a value stream. Value doesn't flow; it's produced or created. Hopefully. So I think with that, we're kind of at the end of our normal flow conversation time. So we could wrap that up and say thank you to everybody for another engaging conversation and exciting topic, and look forward to next time.
Definitely. Should we do final takeaways? Does anybody have any final takeaways?
I think I just gave mine.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. For me, I think that this, if I were to boil it down, it's thinking in terms of expected value versus delivered value, and being conscious of at least those two states. And I think of them as sort of states of value. But I see a lot of power in both thinking in terms of value as a hypothesis until we know for sure that someone's got value. And then the idea of this, like redefining our own lexicon, right? Don't be afraid to go to terms and say, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to us in our context? And is the word serving us, right? Is the term serving us? Do we need or want a new term that encompasses our understanding so that we can have this strong, cohesive conversation?
Dries?
Yeah, I agree with this, and perhaps also to use terms like direct value and indirect value to not qualify or disqualify some work. But we will probably go further with this these ideas in the next call, the next meeting.
I think coming out of a lot of the stuff we've talked about, that looking at value as something that requires a relationship with the customer, paired with the paradigm shift to systems over individuals. There's so many ramifications there. Paired with, you know, lexicon and context and language and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of exciting opportunity, I think, behind all this. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.